do our lesson today within groups because today we are talking about the importance of small groups. Now, I know we do this every single week. We meet with our groups every single week, but today we want to put a special emphasis on why we do that, why we try to create space. In fact, we've changed a lot of the structure of what we do on our Sunday morning experience for your age group so that it centers more around groups, okay? How many of you have been here longer than like 3 or 4 years? Anybody? Upstairs, like 7th and 8th graders. Do we have any in here, 7th and 8th graders? Do you remember a time, we haven't done it a whole lot since like post-COVID, because this is really where we kind of started changing things more, but we used to have, the game would be a lot shorter. It'd be like 10 minutes, maybe 15 tops. We would have worship, so we'd have like 2 songs, 3 songs, and then the lesson, and then groups. Do you guys remember that? Anybody remember when we used to do that like on a regular basis? So like, Here's the reason why we eliminated the music worship time, okay? Was because we got to the end of the hour a lot of times and you had like 5 or 10 minutes to briefly close out a discussion within groups. And that's just not enough time to like connect to each other, really like go into any of the topics of discussion with much depth. And it made it really hard for you guys to actually connect with each other. So we actually changed the structure so that you guys would have a good like 20 minutes each week, at least, with your groups. That's the goal. I know it varies week to week, but most of the time the goal is to give you guys at least 20 minutes with your group, because this is the reason we meet on Sunday mornings. Because if you can't connect with other people your age and your stage of life trying to live out for Jesus, then what are we even doing meeting together? We're going to have some fun. We'll sing some songs. We'll talk about God, which is great. All those things are good. But if you don't actually build relationships with each other, then it makes a lot of what we do tough to have any meaning in your life beyond just, oh, I heard a good sermon once, and then I don't remember what it is. Or we had fun playing games or whatever. That's not what's actually going to change your life. It's the people around you. It's learning about God and studying His Word, but we don't really get to see how that's lived out until we live it out with our relationships with one another. So, small groups are huge. Well, let me tell you about a time when I was 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. It started when I was in probably 8th grade, maybe 7th grade. I was in band, and there was something called honors band. Is that a thing here? It was in Missouri. It's like where you go and you, on an individual basis, you practice for months, you show up to a statewide, a regional wide at first, and then it goes statewide, competition, where you go into a room where the judge is, their backs to you, and you have to go in and do a blind audition. You do your chromatic scales, you do a piece of music, and sometimes the judge will ask you to play something again. Sometimes they'll just say thank you and let you leave. It's the most intimidating thing ever. And I remember one year I had to go by myself. And I sat there you got to sit there for like an hour, wait in line, sometimes longer. It's an all-day thing. And then you go in and you're like nervous, and you have to like audition and try to get into this honors band, which is a statewide thing. Man, it is incredibly competitive, incredibly tough, and nerve-wracking. And it's in times like that I wished I didn't have to go alone. I wished I had people in my corner, in my life, standing next to me, waiting for me to go in. But oftentimes there's so few people from our school that did it, I was the only one that was there. Or if there was somebody else from our school, they were doing a different instrument. So we were in different parts of the building, different audition lines, just waiting with a bunch of people I didn't know. It's before phones, so all you do is sit there and try to make friends or sit quietly because you're trying to focus. It was incredibly intimidating. And it's in times like that I wish I would have had more people around me. Some things in life are just better with friends. Can I get an amen? Some things are just better with friends. So what's one thing that would be easier to do with a friend? I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want you to talk this over with your group. What's one thing that would be easier to do with a friend? Go. And there's something about having somebody with you, especially going through like the scariest things in life. It's nice to have somebody with you to go through it with you so you're not alone. And can we just be real and honest for a second? For many of you, I understand, even if it's not this way now, it was probably the first time you came up here. Church is that thing for you, right? Some of you, maybe even today, you came up and you were like, man, I don't know about these people. I don't know. We've got people from all different kinds of school districts, lots of homeschool. A lot of you guys don't associate with each other except for on a Sunday morning. And so many of you, I get you probably come up here and church is that scary thing. You're like, man, I wish I had somebody else with me that I could go to church with, not have to go through this alone, And I get that. Sometimes church feels that way. Coming here every week, walking to a room full of people that you may or may not know very well, learning about God and then asking questions and just trying to figure it out. Trying to maybe be comfortable with people that you don't spend every other day with. What do I share? What do I filter? How honest and real can I be? Maybe I'll just sit back and, all those things. I've been in your shoes. I know what that's like. And it's tough at times. Sometimes church can be that place. But the good news is it doesn't have to be. And we try to structure our Sundays so that you guys can build off of these relationships to one another. Some of you, you've been coming here for years. You know the people in your small group well. And some of you, that's the opposite of how you feel. You don't feel like scared or intimidated. You look forward to coming up here. You enjoy time up here with all your friends. And so I want you to take a minute here, and I'm going to give you just a minute so that we make sure we get to everything, but a minute to talk about what's one thing that you like about your small group. Okay? And go. So I know a lot of you, maybe you got good things to say. I heard lots of talking, so that's good. But some of you, again, I recognize whether it's because you don't know anybody or maybe you're a fifth grader and you've only been coming up here a couple months, or maybe you're introverted like this guy. And I've been to other churches before. My whole family's like in ministry, so anytime we're on vacation or going to visit family, I have to go to some strange church that I don't know anybody at. I've had to be in awkward small groups. I don't know anybody. Maybe you do know everybody in your group, and that's why. But what's one reason now, maybe one thing you don't like about your small group? Or a better question, one reason someone, so that you're not blaming anybody, but someone may not like your small group. All right, so hopefully that just whets your appetite for some of the discussion today, because I want you to recognize the reality of where some people are at. Some people love and are excited about church and small groups and all of it. Some people just are not. Some people, for whatever reason, might be intimidated by it or have some reservations when it comes to sharing life with a group of people. But whether you feel connected to a group now or not, what we're going to be talking about today is incredibly important, because while we want small groups to be your people, to be the place where you can be real, be safe, be honest, and open, the reality is what we're going to talk about today is going to be applicable to every part of your life, to all of your relationships, to your family, to your friends, and it's going to be helpful for you to know and to be able to understand the truths we're going to be talking about today, because it has the opportunity to affect every other area of your life and your relationships. So group should be the place where you can support and build each other up, to encourage one another, to carry each other's burdens. And in order to foster an environment so that can become a reality for you and for your friends, that's really what we're going to be getting into today. And so this goes all the way back to the early days of God's people, and especially in the New Testament, as the church was first starting out, a lot of the writers of the New Testament had a lot to say about this stuff. In the book of Hebrews, actually, the author was writing to the Hebrew people, or the Israelites, those who had grown up going to temple, going to synagogue, and having church, not the way we have it today, but that's where they would have their weekly gatherings, and they would meet. But the writer of Hebrews is telling them that, hey, Jesus came, he established the ecclesia, the church, for this very reason, for meeting together. And this is what he says in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 and 25. He says, this is really important, let us think of ways to motivate one another toward acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So basically, church isn't just about showing up, singing songs, hearing about the Bible, or anything like that. That's part of it, but also, if you're neglecting meeting together because of the relationships, because you're motivating each other towards love and good works, like if you're not meeting together, as some have stopped doing, then you need to get back in that habit, because this is why this is important. What helps your faith grow is when it's lived out in community. When you live out your faith with a group of people that can make you better, hold you accountable, lovingly correct you when necessary, and where you can show up for other people, because church isn't just about you. It's about the people sitting next to you. So I've heard people all the time. I've been in ministry for over a decade at this point, and I can't tell you how many times people say, I'm just not getting anything out of church. I don't know why I should come. You guys heard that before? Have you heard people say something along those lines like, I'm just not being fed. I'm not getting anything out of it. The problem with that kind of thinking is that it's not about you. Sure, you should come and be encouraged and built up and all that good stuff. It's good. But you should also be the kind of person that helps other people feel that way. Maybe God wants you in church, not because he has something for you, but because he has something for the person sitting next to you, and he needs to use you to get to that person. Maybe somebody who's going to come to church today is going to need the friend that you can be. Right? Community is where our faith is lived out. Our faith is not lived out in isolation. When people try to just live, I follow Jesus, but they don't go to church, they don't have a small group, they don't live in relationships with other people, then really their faith is on an island. It's in isolation. And you don't grow that way. And so this is the reason that God set this up, and the author of Hebrews is reminding the early church of this. So in your own words, what does it mean to be in community with others? I'm going to give you a little more time. I'm going to give you like 3 or 4 minutes to do this one, okay? On your mark, get set, go. All right. So, real quick, I'm going to finish up here so that you guys can finish the rest of your time in your small groups. But you can stick with me for another 5 minutes. We'll get through this real quick together, okay? So, the good news, our groups is where we want you to be able to have, at least create an opportunity for you to create community for your own life, for yourself. Have people that you can meet with and hang out with on a regular basis that will listen to us when we're struggling, that will fight for us when we're down, that will encourage us when we're accomplishing things in our lives that are exciting, that can help us see ourselves maybe from a different perspective than the normal people that we hang out with on a regular basis, to care about us no matter what we're going through or what we're dealing with. And I don't know about you, but that's something that I definitely need in my life, that I've seen my life lived with and without those things. I can tell you 100% my life is always better when I have those kind of people around me on a regular basis. And so this is check out what Paul says actually to the church in Colossae. He's writing to the Colossians, and this is what he says about this. This is a familiar verse, but in a different translation. Maybe it'll hit a little bit differently today. But he says this. He says, therefore, as God's choice, holy and loved, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Be tolerant with each other, and if someone has a complaint against everyone, forgive each other. As the Lord forgave you, so also forgive each other. And over all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. So what can we do within our small groups to have God's Spirit living in each and every one of us through those fruit of the Spirit? Living out those qualities. How can we bring that to the group so that the people that we want to be around, we start to become? Right? You want people that are gentle and kind and patient with you. So if we are that to those around us, that means we are creating an environment where that kind of thing happens on a regular basis. So it starts with us, is what Paul is saying. It starts with us. It starts with our approach. Maybe you've heard the phrase, what you get out of it is what you put into it. Right? With school, if you want a good grade, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Right? In sports, you want to excel and get better and you want to practice hard, what you put into it is what you'll get out of it. The same is true in every area of your life, but it's true in all of your relationships as well. It's true in your small groups. What you get out of it is what you put into it. And so if you want that kind of a group, a lot of it starts with each and every one of you on an individual basis to bring that kind of attitude to group that can then transform the way that your group operates. So I want us to try something real quick. Everybody stand up where you're at, and we're not going to spread out through the whole room, but I want you to think about where you're at as a group and step either to the left side, your right side of the group, or the opposite. Okay? I'm going to give you some scenarios, some of these traits that we just read about in the scripture. I want you to go to whichever side of your little huddle that you resonate with, and there'll be arrows on the screen to direct you, okay? So first one, compassion. Are you great at that, or are you not so great? And this isn't for judgment. This is just to think, okay, this is where I need to work on, or this is what I'm good at. Okay? How many of you are good at compassion? Stand on your right if you're great at it, and stand on your left if you're not great at it. Compassion is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and feel love and kindness towards them. Maybe that's a good discussion to have during your group time in a few minutes. Yeah. Okay, next one. Kindness. Are you great at it or not so great? For some of you, it depends on who you're dealing with. Okay, how about this one? Humility. Great or not so great? Humility is being able to understand you don't know everything. Sometimes we always think we're right. That's not humility. You can talk about that one here in a minute too. All right, how about this one? Gentleness. You know what that one is, I know. All right, are you great at it? Not so great. Okay? How about this one? Patience. How about this one? Tolerance. Now, a little caveat to this one. When we're talking about tolerance, think Acts chapter 2. The authors of Acts, Luke said everybody had everything in common with one another. That doesn't mean that they like the same sports teams, have the same hobbies, thought the same way. That's not what tolerance is. Tolerance is the ability to love and be kind and be able to get along with everybody despite your differences. How tolerant are you? Our culture tends to put a negative spin on that word. But that's what we're talking about. All right. How about this one? Forgiveness. Are you great at that? Or do you like to hold grudges? All right. And I think this is the last one. Love. How about that one? You great at loving one another? Not so great. All right, just something to think about. You'll just continue to digest that a little bit in your group in a second. Okay, we all have great qualities to bring to small group. You guys can have a seat. You all have great qualities to bring to small group, and that's great. Some of you are better at other things. Some of you are you're going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and that's why a group is so good and important, because each of you get to play in your strengths and help each other in your weaknesses. Make sense? Right? You got examples even within your group of people on the opposite side of the spectrum as you when it comes to all these different qualities. So you get to learn from those around you, and you get to show for those around you, right? We really we want to put on the Spirit of God in every area of our life, and that's what's going to affect the quality of your own group. The reality is, and again, this extends beyond your own group, but you can help make small group an experience for everyone. You can help make small group a great experience for everyone. And if you do this, if you try to just work on how you can be the best version of yourself, living in the Spirit of God, showing the fruit of the Spirit in everything that you do, this is going to help build up your group time. Right? When you have differences with one another, forgive each other. Don't hold it against each other. I mean, some of you think other people in your group are weird. Some of you are the weird one. That's okay. Weird is a subjective word. What's weird to you might not be weird to somebody else. That's okay. Some of you just don't know how weird you are yet, and that's fine, right? So the reality is you can help make small group a great experience for everyone. Now, I've had the privilege of being in church world my whole life, so I've been a part of great small groups. I've been a part of not so great small groups. I lead a high school group on Sunday nights, and so it's amazing to see how we bond differently our junior senior year than we did our freshman sophomore year, because as time goes on, we build into our one another, as we go through tough ups and downs with each other and experience each other through different seasons of life, it transforms the group. And the more open and honest we can be with each other, the deeper the group is, and the more life-changing it becomes. I've been in adult small groups with some of you in this room, right? It changes everything when you are surrounded by people who care about you, who love you, and are doing life with you, that are praying for you, that can show up after a tornado comes through Whiteland. They can come and they can help put your fence back together. You will have people in your life that can show up for you in various ways, right? And so if there's anything that I'd like for you to attempt to do over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, year, as you meet in small groups, is one, show up for one another, right? Whether that's through text or through whatever, or just on a Sunday morning, if that's the most you can do, show up. If you can show up for each other, that's the first step in making your group a safe, awesome environment, right? Show up for one another. Secondly, think about how you can make your small group great. What's it lacking, and how can you fill in that void? How can you help make it great? Are people afraid to share anything? Is one or two people constantly the only ones talking? What can you contribute to the conversation? How can you, maybe for some of you introverts, step outside your comfort zone and share a little bit when there's that lull in the conversation? How can you show kindness when someone's being vulnerable about something that they're going through and they don't know how to express it and they feel weird sharing it? How can you help them feel more comfortable in sharing whatever it is they're sharing? How can you step up to the plate and be a leader in your group when it seems like nobody else is paying attention or behaving in a way that's conducive for the entire group? How can you be the person that helps make your small group experience great? Don't think about why it sucks because of everybody else in your group. Think about why it can be awesome because of what you can contribute to it. That would be my challenge for you. Show up and think about how you can make it great, because the reality is you can help make small group a great experience for everybody.